This is Kenzie Babenzi, Shine the Light. Today is Thursday, July 13th, 2023. The name of this message is titled Surrender, Rid Distractions, Watch the Clock. This is the hour. This is the minute. Each dream symbol takes time for me to explain. Please be patient and finish the message. Also, please bear with me as I share times and dates shown in different dreams. It will make sense if you focus and listen with a calendar open. You are an instrument of praise, but must submit, surrender, and give up everything and be completely surrendered to Him, that your life would be an instrument of praise for God's honor and glory. Surrendering all means surrendering all of your natural desires, the thoughts and plans for your own life, the pleasures of this life, your fears, your entire heart is what He requires. Complete obedience and surrender is what is required for the ability to have peace and perception of God's presence and will. In my dream, after prayer, I was dancing on my tiptoes, being careful and gentle with my steps. I was practicing different moves, and I was very happy. I stretched my arms above my head and touched the middle of the house, which is a wooden beam, with my fingertips. Stretching out my arms is an act of faith, similar to when Jesus commanded the crippled man to stretch out his hands. We're often expected in life to stretch out in faith. I could only do this by the power of the Holy Spirit. When we take each step and stretch out in an act of obedience, that is how we have faith. The middle of the house is a wooden beam that represents the cross. The house represents the mind. If the roof is not attached or centered in the middle at both points onto the middle beam, which is the cross, then it loses its strength, power to be able to protect from hardships. The sides of the roof were not fallen or leaning in on me, just gently touching the top of my head. I commanded the roof of the house to be raised up. As I surrendered, stretched out, carefully taking steps and making my faith in Jesus the center of my mind. This part shows what is required when we go to Him during this time of great need. However, this can also not be just for me, but the bride needing to focus their mind on the cross. Our body is a temple for the living God and is passing away, but it houses His presence. We need to center all our thoughts, heart, and mind on Jesus and His cross, which He did for us, and our mind will be made strong to be able to perceive what Jesus is speaking. The roof is what protects you from bad weather, so if your mind is not strong, how will you survive? As I was giving this message, I saw a circular image of a rainbow, like an insignia. You belong to a heavenly kingdom. The ark is your protection, and seeing the rainbow is God saying He will have grace on those in the ark. There will be a beautiful rainbow. Hold on to that promise. Get into covenant with God. I was taken to a wall after dancing to look at something. Underneath the paper was a clock positioned on the wall. Symbolically, this means watchman on the wall. The paper represents a couple of things. It is a truth and is veiled and not for everyone to know. This paper, also being white and blank, represents the writing on the wall, like Daniel to Nebuchadnezzar. But the simple cannot see it. Only those who fear God and live in complete surrender and submit to Him and obedient to His will be able to have, by the power of the Holy Spirit, lift off that sleeve, that paper, and see that it's not a word, but it is an image that God has. That is the message. We have His word in dream symbols, and He simply stated, this is the hour, this is the minute. I saw on the clock, underneath the paper, superimposed was a notification from my phone that was blocking my view of the exact place of the hour and minute hand. I removed the notification by swiping it away, and then the paper was placed back. I removed the paper again, and now I was able to see this time. Right as I was looking, I saw the time on the clock, 1:50, changed to 1:51. Under the 1 was the words, "This is the hour." Underneath the 51 was the words, "This is the minute." The story of the writing on the wall to Nebuchadnezzar is something that is made very plain. However, this will not be made plain to anyone who doesn't have permission to lift off the veil. Okay. Even though we know that we are in the end times, this is the hour, this is the minute, everything has been culminating to. The dream symbol of time is in reference to the clock that has been shown to me in relation to the Titanic sinking in previous dreams. On February 26, I released a message, and at 32 minutes and 40 seconds, I explained how I saw the Titanic ship coming into this black asphalt, black sea. I knew it was about to hit us. I then ran backwards. I looked to the east, and I can see the moon and the stars in their moving position from the 12 to 12:15, making that March 13th. Then, after praying for more time, it was moved back to 11:45. So after researching the initial impact of the Titanic being 11:40, the actual sinking of the ship being 2:20, this makes me think that God is saying that after the impact, 11:40, we would have 5 minutes or 1 week before we even realize that we've been impacted by this iceberg. So if the dream was posted on February 26, moved forward 1/2 hour, then back a half hour, this represents that God would allow time, one half hour representing a month, to proceed forward, and then give us an extra half hour by resetting the clock to 11:45. 1/2 hour or month from February 26 is March 13th. If he allowed the clock to go back 1/2 hour, that means did I say March 16th? I meant to say March 13th. That means on March 13th at 12:15 on the doomsday clock, it was reset to 11:45. Okay, now keeping that in mind, I'm going to read a news article. Okay, South African Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor has said worldwide interest in the BRICS group was huge early March. She told television interviewers she had 12 letters from interested countries on her desk. Also, she stated, "Once we've shaped the criteria for lending, we will then make the decision," noting that the topic would be placed on the agenda for the upcoming summit in South Africa in August. This is the iceberg which we were hit with in March on God's clock that she is referring to. It is now July 13th, 2023, and the time on the clock is now 1:51. July 13th, 2023 is 1:51. Okay? I'm going to water is flowing in and will sink the Titanic by 2:20. This leaves us with only 29 minutes to the clock of completely sinking the economy. I calculated from March 13th, 11:45 to 2:20 is 155 minutes, which represents days. So from March 13th, moving forward 155 days, we land on August 15th, a Tuesday. The BRICS Summit is the following Tuesday on August 22nd to 2023 to Thursday, August 24th, 2023. To double check the timing, I looked up March 13th at 11:45 to 1:51. The total amount of minutes between these 2 points on the clock is 126 minutes. If I calculate 126 days forward from March, that brings us to July 17th, 2023. Plotting from July 17th forward 29 days due to the fact that there is 29 minutes from 1:51 to 2:20, it brings us to August 14th, 2023. Okay. The BRICS Summit is August 22nd to August 24th. Okay? So I wanted to back up just a little bit. Now, today is July 13th, 2023, and the time on the clock is 1:51. However, July 17th is also 1:51. That is because God is showing us where we are on the calendar ahead of time. 2:20 lands on August 15th, 1 week before BRICS meeting, because he wants us to coordinate our efforts, use that time wisely, and get off the sinking ship before it's too late. Go to your safe place. Don't wait for help. You are the help. You are receiving God's message ahead of time. That's why the date lands 1 week ahead of time. There's no way my dreams could all coincidentally line up to these dates. This is God. Okay? And so the timeline is also not based off the Gregorian calendar where there are a set number of each days, but based off God's timeline, which is based off of a lunar cycle. This means there is a variance each month and could be up to a week in total variance for when this judgment is complete and Titanic is completely sunk. I did not find out what BRICS was until I recently saw it briefly and noticed it had something to do with global commerce. That's when I remembered my other dream, which I had about a year ago. The dream was that my mother was knelt down, looking at her phone and the wall. She was facing a brick wall, and she said, "It actually happened. I can't believe this actually happened." All of her money that was in the banks was gone. I think if you have money, you need to buy the things you need and also buy silver and keep cash. I was told to buy silver. That's why I say this. Use wisdom. Don't put it all in one spot. Don't tell anyone. Don't even tell those closest to you. The battle plans are the Lord's. Don't give those out like free bread. Keep your cards close and don't have an open door policy. Women, please, if you are like me and very friendly, now is the time to put on your poker face. Do not look back. Do not even think you will meet anyone who will be your knight in shining armor. Jesus is your knight in shining armor. If he's provided that protection and resource through a husband, then praise the Lord. But otherwise, stick together with other female believers. The Titanic being a ship in the dream, and representing not only a classist society of well-to-do rich people being the first to flee a sinking ship and the people at the bottom being trapped where the water rises. Most people didn't find out it was sinking in time to get to the ship to be able to board the limited amount of lifeboats. People thought it was unsinkable because of the way it was built. The people trusted the engineers, the captain, and the infrastructure of the ship. The whore of Babylon also sits on the waters and does fornication with many nations, and the 10 kings in the book of Revelation that are the 10 horns on top of the 7 heads of the beast, which she rides, will all give their authority over to the beast that rises out of the sea. They will devour her and hate her. Revelation chapter 17, verse 16. The beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. This is just the beginning. This is another setup of Western society, who is the whore of Babylon, and her commerce and trade being shown in the dream symbol of the Titanic. The black parking lot is a symbol for the Black Sea, where they do trade on. This is a proposal to ensure the ships with grain from Ukraine. I'm sorry, hold on. Missed a part. Yeah, okay. Ukraine Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba. What does this mean exactly? That the people who have never upheld the law of protecting their own citizens, let alone in war, and have been known. Okay, so this is a proposal to ensure ships with the grain from Ukraine. Let me double check what that is, because that's something completely different. Okay, so I'm missing part of what I had written. I don't know what happened, but I apologize. I found it. I found the article, so I'll go ahead and try to read some of it. While the BRICS foreign ministers called for full and effective implementation of the Black Sea Grain Initiative, they also insisted on the need to fulfill the stipulations of the Memorandum of Understanding between Russia and the Secretariat of the United Nations. This MOU was created to promote the export of Russian food products and fertilizers to the world markets, and the BRICS leaders stressed the importance of allowing these grains and fertilizers to continue to reach those most in need. According to Russian authorities, this MOU has not been honored, and it therefore puts the Black Grain deal at risk. Black Sea Grain deal at risk. The deal was recently extended to July following its May 18th deadline, and Russia is adamant about not having it extended further on account of its dishonored MOU with the UN. As a group of emerging markets, the BRICS members discussed countering the U.S. expansion by expanding their influence and having a shared currency at the Cape Town meeting. That speaks pretty plainly. This is called Milling Middle East and Africa, #1 grains industry magazine and website for Africa and the Middle East. And the title of the article is BRICS Foreign Ministers Call for Full Implementation of Black Sea Grain Initiative on June 6th of 2023. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read what I had written in response to that. What does this mean exactly? That the people who have never upheld the law of protecting their own citizens, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, let alone in war, and have been known to breach global political agreements upheld since World War II, such as rules of engagement and the Geneva Convention, among other agreements that they have not upheld. Now they say, and I quote, "The MOU has not been honored, and it therefore puts the Black Sea Grain deal at risk." Russia is adamant on not having it extended further on account of its dishonored MOU with the UN. So they're saying that the UN hasn't been held accountable. They have not been. Meanwhile, Putin is wanted for arrest and will not be arrested in South Africa. Okay. When he arrives there, he will not be arrested. Okay. And I'll read an article about him also not being arrested. So it's quite frankly very funny because they state plainly, like, he was there for them during the apartheid movement. So they do not see it fit to hold him accountable. Not condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine, saying it is impartial and prefers dialogue. The African leader's mission brought the voice of a continent that has badly suffered from repercussions of the Ukraine conflict, particularly with rising grain prices. It put forward a 10-point proposal, including de-escalation, the recognition of country sovereignty, unimpeded grain exports through the Black Sea, and sending prisoners of war and children back to their countries of origin. South Africa is the current chair of the BRICS, a grouping of heavyweights that also includes Brazil, Russia, India, and China, to challenge the dominant U.S. and European-led global governance structures. They are comparing BRICS to heavyweights. This group of countries that gathered together to create a global currency. Very interesting how they describe them as heavyweights. And the fact that even though South Africa has suffered because of Ukraine and Putin is wanted for arrest, South Africa is the current chair of BRICS and is not going to hold him accountable. That's because he doesn't care about his country. They do not one single one of them cares about one of their any of their countries. BRIC is an acronym for the developing nations of Brazil, Russia, India, and China. They are countries that some believe will be the dominant suppliers of manufactured goods, services, and raw materials by 2050. That's not all that they're going to be. Another article I just read, DW.com, A New World Order, BRICS nations offer alternative to the West. So, okay, so I feel like I want to just provide spark notes because they speak in such legal terms. I don't really like the way that they talk. It's almost like they don't want people to understand them. No sanctions against Russia, according to DW.com. Since the start of the Russian war in Ukraine, the BRICS countries have only distanced themselves further from the so-called West. Neither India, Brazil, South Africa, or China are taking part in sanctions against Russia. So, basically, they're for each other, not for their own countries. Diplomatically, the war in Ukraine appears to have drawn a stark dividing line between an Eastern-backed Russia and the West. Political scientist Matthew Bishop from the University of Sheffield wrote for the Economics Observatory late last year. Consequently, some European and U.S. policymakers worry that the BRICS may become less an economic club of rising powers seeking to influence global growth and development, and more a political one defined by their authoritarian nationalism. Finally, one person who speaks plainly to the people. That is so horrible. Okay, they're vying for better terms. How can they not have better terms? They're the ones starting a war in Russia. But they want everything on their terms, and they have a double standard. So China, on the other hand, is using the platform for its global political ambitions. Myholt added, pointing to Beijing's offers to mediate the war in Ukraine and the joint military exercises it held with Russia in South Africa. Myholt believes the West has noticed its change in tact and is trying to counteract it. They're looking very closely at the G7 summit in Germany in 2022. They made a point of inviting South Africa and India in order to prevent the optics that the G7 was standing against BRICS. So, there again is kind of like another way that the Whore of Babylon is trying to still take for herself what she can, but at the same time, not wanted in the beast system. So I hope that shines a light on some things. The International Criminal Court to arrest Putin if he attends the talks. South Africa has a duty as a signatory to the International Criminal Court to arrest Putin if he attends the talks between the leaders of Brazil, Russia, India, and China due to an arrest warrant over the deportation of children from Ukraine. Wow, that's horrible. Putin denies the charges. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa met with him on June 17th in Russia, historically a strong ally of the governing African National Congress since it was a liberation movement fighting white minority rule decades ago. South Africa will host the BRICS Summit at the Sandton Convention Center in Sandton, Johannesburg from the 22nd to 24th of August 2023. So, did you guys know that Ukraine This is going to sound... I'm not even going to mention it. So, okay. And guess who is at the top of this whole thing? Who is the one who is winning the most out of the whole BRICS government, or whatever it is? Is it Brazil? Is it Russia? India? It's China. China is the one who is succeeding the most financially. They hold all the cards. This is important to note because in Bible prophecy, it is the dragon in Revelation 12 that pursues the woman. The dragon may not only be symbolically Satan, but is also a political structure that is satanic. Their infrastructure of geopolitical commerce, I say geopolitical because they are communist, previously called the Silk Road, was rich in coveted exported goods like spices and silk that was carried along. It is now called the Belt and Road Initiative, put in place by Xi Jinping in 2017, importing raw products and exporting finished products all the way around the world, with China at the center. It looks like a snake. They have pictures of it too, historical pictures of maps of their trade route, and it looks like a dragon.